Today marks the 82nd anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor.
Students from the Bangor JROTC program did their part to ensure we never forget. Connor Magliosi has more.
Thursday officially marked 82 years since the attack on Pearl Harbor that forever changed our nation. And here in Bangor, people came together to honor the courage shown on that day and to remember those who paid the ultimate sacrifice.
In just over an hour, 2,403 personnel lay dead or dying. Among them, PFC Willard C. Orr, for who this bridge is named.
The ceremony is a yearly tradition for the Bangor JROTC.
We always enjoy doing these ceremonies, not just because they're a great service to the public, which we love doing, but also because it's an opportunity to have our students learn more about what happened on these attacks. Some of these students are not always familiar with what happened that day, and this is a great opportunity to learn about the people who lost their lives, how this affected us as a country afterward, and it really helps them understand the impact that this event had. One message that always gets repeated over and over again is never forget, and that's not going to happen unless we keep doing these ceremonies and we keep allowing our students, our young people, to keep learning about these events. And so the way that we keep learning about these events is we keep continuing to do these ceremonies. We keep having lessons explaining what happened and allowing students to have discussions about those events.
Connor Magliosi, WABI, TV5 News.